Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Inkylesconvo. It's great to be back, and it's great to, as I always say that in every episode, but it's great to just have the reception you guys have, been giving me, and the way that Instagram and stuff has been kicking off. It's been crazy. But today's guest is Graeme Hart. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Very well.
It's great to, as people don't know, it took a while because life kind of got in the way, but I'm finally glad to get you on, mate. So like the question I'm always curious about people that go into like coaching and football and things like that, was this always something like you wanted to do, or was this did it kind of slide in if there was like another dream or passion you had?
Yeah, I think with coaching it probably starts with playing. So when I was younger, I kind of played pro youth and came through youth academies and things. And I think a lot of people that coach are either when they're older they've been professionals and then moved into the game from that way, or they've maybe not quite made the grade when they're younger and taken up sort of passion for coaching. And that was probably my route, where probably wasn't quite good enough to make it to any sort of good level. So just played junior and things, but then went to study sport coaching and sort of things developed from there. So yeah, probably always have been passionate about the football side of things, but I have to be honest, probably wasn't good enough to make it playing. So coaching was probably the second option then.
Yeah. Did you always want to like, because I should have really asked, but the other people I've had on, but was it always like coaching? Like, was it? See, when you go into coaching and stuff like that, do you pick like male or female, or is it like do you just get kind of placed in that type of coaching role?
No, so when I started coaching when I was 16 actually. So when I was playing sort of pro youth, and I was in the academies at St Mirren, that's kind of started my coaching journey. So it's just a volunteer going in and helping out, and really just picking up cones as such at that age. And then obviously eventually went to university when sort of things didn't work out in terms of being full time, and kind of knew I wasn't going to make the grade. So then went to study at university, and again it was sort of going around academies and coaching within the sort of academies, and ended up coaching the university team that I was at, so at Abertay in Dundee. So I took the men's team there actually, which then we had a bit of success, we won a league and got promoted from there. And then when I graduated, it kind of fell in line with St Andrews St Andrews University were looking for coaches at that point. They were looking for male and female, and the way it kind of worked out, because I was still playing at this point, playing junior. So the nights the females trained on actually worked out better for me. So kind of fell into the female route through sort of my playing, so I could juggle both. Mm. And then ever since then, I've not wanted to coach male again, because I just really enjoy coaching the female side of things, and I just think it's a lot better for coaching and a better environment.
Yeah, and good for you as well. Now, like, how it's something I'm curious about football, and speaking to people that, as people know, Derek Johnson and various other different people I've had on before, and friends in football, they say football is one of the best things for like your mental health, because you literally have like in the gym, obviously you lift weights, but then you could sit on your phone. In football, you have to be concentrated the whole game. Like you can't be like taken out or taken away or anything like that. What's your opinion on that one?
Yeah, I think it's good and bad. I think it certainly really helps people's mental health in terms of being part of a team and being in an environment where you're working for each other. So I think a lot of sort of individual sports and things where, or even just as you say, going to the gym, it's a lot of pressure on yourself to do that, but having people round about you and support mechanisms round about you to go and actually be part of a team and achieve something together, that's probably the best feeling about it. Being in that environment, and when you win or when you do something really well, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your teammates and your fellow people that you want to do well for. So from that point of view, I think mentally it's a lot more rewarding in terms of the success. But on the other hand, it can also be really challenging, because when things don't go your way, you feel like you've let a lot of people down. You feel like it's not just, so when you play an individual sport, if you again, if you kind of don't do it or you miss a day at the gym, you're only letting yourself down. Whereas in team environments, as much as you get the success as well, you can go through real hard times personally, because if you feel like you're letting your teammates down, the last thing you want to do is tell them. So sometimes it's been in that wee bubble of sort of, you're in an individual bubble, but at the same time you're in that team bubble. So it is really, really rewarding, and you do need to be part of it to understand it. But at the same time, it can be really challenging for individuals as well.
Yeah, and say like you've got somebody that feels like they are letting the team down and things like that. What do you tell them? Like, what do you tell them to, like, maybe, like, obviously not literally clear their head, but how do you help them clear their head would be a better question.
Yeah, from my point of view, that for me, the most important message I give any player is, first and foremost, you're playing to enjoy it. Like, it doesn't matter if you're getting paid millions and millions of pounds a year or you're doing it for free. Ultimately, everyone plays football because they enjoy it. That's why they play it. They don't play it because it's hassle and whatever. People don't play it just to get fit. People have just been brought up and they love playing the game. So that's sort of the message I relay all the time, whether they're struggling or not. And so when they do struggle a wee bit and they maybe come, and it's like, look, just come along. Don't put pressure on yourself. Just come along and enjoy it. And that's the most important thing, is any player enjoys it. It doesn't matter if you're the best professional in the world, getting the most money. Ultimately, your mental health will suffer if you're not enjoying it. So they've really got to just turn up. And I always say, like, everyone struggles with problems at home, whether it be some people have bigger problems, some people have less problems. Everyone has good days, everyone has bad days. And that is part of life. And we all want to be there for each other. But ultimately, I want people just to turn up in football as the release, and that's their sort of, they turn up and they don't forget about their problems, because the problems are always going to be there, but they're turning up and they're having fun, and they maybe go away, and the problems at home, they haven't disappeared, but maybe they've went away with a refreshed attitude and a new outlook on it, and they can maybe go and help and solve their problems or whatever it may be they're suffering from.
Yeah, because it does take a toll as well, because sometimes you don't feel like anybody necessarily cares about your problems, but which is what a lot of us feel. But, like, as you're saying, when you're in a team environment, people genuinely do, because if you're letting, they can, even if you're not opening up that you're struggling, or that, they can tell you're struggling, because you're not acting the same, you're not moving the same. For football, you're not playing the same, you're not concentrating, and it does take a huge toll. But see when you're having to, like, sit down and before a game and stuff like that, and there is, like, maybe multiple people are suffering at once, is there a way to, like, obviously there's, getting hyped and stuff like that, but is there a way to communicate with people through football, if that makes sense, in the sense of, like, if they're all sitting as a team and stuff like that before a game, if they're like, I don't know about this, we're nervous, we're, all this sort of stuff, we don't know if we're going to win, blah 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 blah, how do you then turn that round and be like, use that as an advantage rather than a disadvantage, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So I think that probably comes down to a bit of confidence as well, and it's really important. We've been really fortunate this season where we've not lost any games, so we're in a really fortunate position where we're obviously sitting top of the league and haven't lost a game so far this season. So from that point of view, in the league, it's all been going well, but we've had a couple of defeats in the cup. Yeah, they've been to teams in the league above, but ultimately it's reminding them that they're good players, reminding them that the results they've had and the success they've had in the past. And it's one of them. We try to say to the players, like, we don't get carried away when we win. We don't think we're the best team in the world, but ultimately, see, when you lose a game, it doesn't mean you're a bad team, or it doesn't mean so if players are suffering before a game, or they're worried, or they're nervous, end of the day, it's just a game of football. So it's literally going on a pitch against 11 other players with a football and trying to score more goals than them. So it's sometimes literally stripping it back down to the basics and really going, look, just go and play. But it tends to be, if players are worried and nervous, that other players and older players in the team, or the more experienced players that have been in these situations before, they're the ones that sort of get through to the other players more than the coaching staff do. Just because they're in the same boat, they're in the same environment, where coaching staff they're not playing the game, so they can't affect the game as much as the players can affect the game. So normally if it's people are nervous or people aren't sure, the older players will go and sort of speak to them or have a wee quiet word in their ear and make sure they're okay. So having players in the changing room that are good people and good characters is probably the most important thing, because they're the ones that can help in these situations.
You see, when you've got to because the question I've never actually been able to ask before because I keep forgetting about it, but say you've got a player on your team, right? Because obviously it's Dundee United women's you're currently at, or ladies you're currently at, but say you've got a player at your team and they're coming in and they know, because I'm guessing it'll be the exact same in males really, they're coming in and they know absolutely nobody, like they don't even know you. Well, they know who you are, but they've never met you or been around you or something. How do you then introduce that person to make them feel comfortable around a new environment?
Again, it's probably the most important people as your players. From a staff point of view, you can make players feel as welcomed as they want, but ultimately, players aren't going to come into an environment and enjoy it if they don't like the fellow players. Whereas if you've got a coaching staff or you've got members of your team in terms of your staff members that players maybe aren't particularly fond of, you can kind of get away with that because you've got the rest of the team sticking together. But if you've got a new player coming in and the girls aren't, or the team isn't really taken to them, they're going to find it really difficult to settle in and actually produce their best stuff because they're not feeling part of something and they're not feeling like they can actually influence anything. So when a new player comes in, it's really important that you're sort of leaders in the team, that they kind of take on board and they kind of take the player under their wing as such, if you want to call it that. So especially younger players, when younger players come in, they're the ones that tend to be really nervous and unsure. When older players come in, they tend to have been in that position before, so they know how to deal with it. They know they're coming into a new team. And the thing is, in football, there's always, not always, but a lot of the time, there tends to be someone in the dressing room or in the team that you either already know or you know through someone that you know. So it might be a friend of a friend that plays for someone else, or you might have played for a team that she's friends with, so you've kind of got a wee link there already. So when you do get players in like that, if you get anyone that does know someone, you kind of use them as your go-to.
See, as well, so since it is Dundee United you're with, is that the team that you were always? I know for example, we said about University of St Andrews, it kind of just fell into place. But is Dundee United your team from, obviously they will be now, but from back then, or was this kind of like the same thing? It was like a transition that you moved into the team.
Yeah, so I'm actually a St Mirren fan, so originally obviously being from outside Glasgow, so I don't think you've got many Dundee United fans from that neck of the woods. But yes, I'm originally St Mirren, so moved up to Dundee to study, and then sort of obviously got a soft spot for him now because obviously been coaching there for so long and whatever. But yeah, kind of the Dundee United thing came about with the old manager Gavin. He sort of brought me in as his assistant when I was at St Andrews as the head coach. So he brought me in, and then obviously when he left, I got the job permanently. So it was one that it did fall into place as such. But would I say I'm a United fan? No, because St Mirren's always going to be my team. But would I say I like to see United doing well? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. See, because again, I don't know if there's a silly question or not. People are probably like, "Why on earth you're asking this?" But it's been a coach. That's you were saying that's full time. So like Monday to whatever day, or is that just at certain times of the day?
Yeah. So with the women's, our team aren't full time, so we train at nights. So we're in training at nights, and then you play at the weekend on like a Sunday. And men's teams are sometimes like that as well. They lower down the levels you go. So higher up the levels you go, yeah, you're in full time. You're getting paid thousands and thousands a week and stuff. But the women's game's obviously grown a hell of a lot since Scotland qualified for the World Cup, and it's continuing to grow in this country, and just all over the world. It's getting bigger and bigger. But certainly in Scotland, it's getting bigger and bigger. We've now got teams in the top league offering full-time wages to players and stuff, so it's really good from that point of view. So coaching isn't at the moment, it isn't full-time as such, but you're all, even when you're not like on the field, you're still thinking about team selection. You're maybe planning sessions. You're trying to maybe sign players, or you're talking to your own players. So yeah, there's a lot of responsibility there, and there's a lot of extra work on top of what you already do. So the hours you put in isn't always the hours that you would expect. So sometimes you're sitting up on the night before a game, and 2 o'clock in the morning you're thinking about what happens if this happens, and just things like that. You're waking up and trying to think of different ideas or different solutions to different problems on training or on the match days, or you're thinking about all sort of possible outcomes. So yeah, it's not really as simple as just a 9 to 5 sort of Monday to Friday job, unfortunately.
Yeah. Does that mean that you have another job? You don't have to say what it is, obviously, but does that mean you have another job as well then?
Yeah, so yeah, I've got another job down in Anstruther where I live as well. So that kind of that's what I do on the side, obviously, when I'm not at the coaching and stuff.
So how, because your time management must be like, if not impeccable, it must be like way up there, because managing to do, because I know how hard it is to have a podcast, college, and work and train as a strongman. So I know how hard it is to juggle all that. But how do you manage to juggle your time? Like, how do you set out, days for work and coaching, but then also like, because everybody needs downtime. So how do you set that up throughout each day?
Yeah, so kind of week to week is pretty similar, to be honest, because it's the easiest way to do it, and it's like so we have the games on a Sunday. So Monday's sort of reflection day and go through everything that's happened from the game. Tuesday tend to sort of do my other job during the day, but we coach at night. Wednesday, Thursday, pretty much the same. Friday, Saturday, it's then obviously you're putting things in place. But Monday's a really busy day because you're planning for the week, you're planning for everything to go on, you're planning your sessions, you're just basically reflecting and planning at the same time. So Monday's a real big day where you spend time catching up and whatever. And I'm fortunate enough with the job I've got and the support mechanisms in there from my management and stuff that they kind of allow me to not pick and choose my shifts as such. But if I'm needing a couple of hours off here to do something for coaching, or I need to go and watch a game or watch a player, they will allow me to leave early or to come in late and things like that. So really fortunate in terms of that. So obviously not everyone's as fortunate as me in terms of having that sort of support mechanisms in place, but I think they appreciate the time and effort I'm putting in. So it's one that having a job that allows me to go and then do my coaching and then go and take time off when I need to take time off or do this or whatever it may be. It's a massive help in terms of managing your time as well. So yeah, it's difficult at times, but if you're organised and you know what you're doing from week to week and day to day, it's pretty easy if you're on top of things.
Yeah, it's admirable, to be honest with you. So see, when you do have off time, I know you said you used to play and things like that. So when you have off time, are you then going and maybe playing with your mates, or as in football, playing football with your mates is what I meant to say there? Yeah. Or do you have other things you do in your off time?
Yeah, so I've got a son. It's 8 years old. So me and my partner, we don't get a lot of time together. So when we do, we tend to try and spend it together as much as possible. But my downtime is normally going watching football. I take my son because he loves the football and stuff. So if we get any opportunities to go and watch games live, that's sort of my downtime. I get to spend it time with my son, and we kind of like going to the football together. It's like our thing. So any games that are on in any area, so male, female, junior, professional, anything, if there's anything going on, we'll try and get to it as much as possible. So if there's no games on, then obviously spending time with the partner is obviously important as well. But yeah, she's I think she likes it because when I take him away, it gives her peace and quiet. So she's quite supportive from that side of things as well.
Yeah. See how I didn't actually know you had an 8-year-old son, but see him then. Are you wanting him to grow up? Not wanting him, but encouraging him to grow up into football, or are you just, you would rather he did whatever he wanted to do?
Nah, I'm not overly bothered. He does football, he does tennis, he does golf, he goes to swimming. So he's a very active kid, and for me, all I care about is he's happy. So he does love the football and he loves going to it. But do I push him? I don't. I don't like going to his games, and well, I like going to his games, but I don't like coaching him at his games, and I don't like take him down the park and telling him what to do. Like I'll go down the park and just let him kick a ball about. For me, it's just all about fun and him enjoying himself. If you want, he'll get to an age where if he's ready to go and push himself, he can go and push himself. But at 8 years old, for me, just let him go and play and enjoy it. And he does the same at golf. He does the same at tennis. Whatever it is he does, he just, as long as he's having fun, that's my main priority.
Yeah, exactly. And as being a coach and stuff like that, I don't actually know the answer to this question, but you obviously you have a huge care for the players and what they say and things like that, because it's not necessarily that it like reflects on you as much, but it's like a outlet for them as well. As I'm talking about social media, and people will know the question I'm going to ask, but do you think nowadays, when you're wanting to be in like a public facing role, you should necessarily watch what you post on social media? When it comes to give a bit of context to that, it's like if you're posting you going out all the time, people are going to be like, well, he doesn't actually do anything but drink, but this and but that. Or do you think you should kind of still be yourself and, but obviously have that limit where you're not saying like outrageous things? What's your opinion on that one?
I think people should just be themselves, to be honest with you. I think social media has ruined the world, to be honest with you, in terms of people can't be themselves nowadays because people are worried. And it's a vicious circle, because you're now finding that employers are now sacking people because based on what they post on social media, even though it's what they believe and what they believe in on social media. So if people are posting things that they believe in, it's not to say they're right or wrong, but they can post whatever they want. It's their own account, and they're not posting it from wherever they work, whether it be working in a pub, whether it be working in a travel company, whether it be they're in sport, whatever it may be that they work in. Like, people are now finding that they can't post anything on social media about how they feel. So I think social media has now become a place where people are posting things because it's what they think people want to hear and what people think they want to like. So when you're actually seeing things on social media, you don't know if they're true or not. You don't know if people are lying. You don't know. A lot of the time people are doing things to try and impress people. So you're not getting a true reflection of what people are actually like. And obviously you don't get that anyway until you meet someone. But just in general, I don't think social media is a great place for actually understanding what people are like. And I think that's led to more and more problems with people's mental health, because they're trying to live up to people's pressures that people are putting on each other, and they see something and think, oh, I need to be that. Or they see someone driving a car that's not even their car, but they just posted it on social media to try and make themselves look good, and just things like that. You just think you don't need to do that. So it's I think people should just be posting what they think, but they can't, because again, it's a vicious circle, because if they go and post what they believe and what they think, they probably lose their job. So it's not always the right place to do it. But again, I believe that people should be able to have that freedom to go and post what they believe and what they want to believe in. But nowadays people are getting into trouble left, right and centre, so people do actually need to watch what they're doing.
It's very true. It's the thing about, so even I've found in that, it's things you say, even if they're not bad, everybody will still judge you based off what you said. It's not like you don't even have to say anything negative at all. If you say something positive, people are like, why can you, like, if you just because you said car, if you got a new car and you're really happy about it, you worked hard and you post it, people will be like, you do know people can't afford cars, so why are you now posting this about your car? And it's just like, you didn't. You can, as I say to people as well, is that you can just unfollow somebody. If we're talking about Instagram or Twitter, like, you don't actually have to view what they say. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, definitely, it's a big problem and I think it's more the younger generation as well. And it's a thing that more and more people are becoming more and more obsessed with what people think about them and what people perceive as the right thing or the wrong thing. When I was growing up, it was like, who cares? Just it's just do what you want. Like, be who you are. Nowadays, you've got to have the biggest car, the biggest house, the biggest this. Or if someone's got that, you've got to have that. If, like, I've heard even my own son come back from school and all of a sudden someone at his school's got an electric scooter, so he wants an electric scooter, and you're like, no, that's not how the world works. You can't just get something because someone else has got something. So, yeah, I think social media's got a massive role to play in a lot of that, but I don't think it. I think social media could also change people's outlook in things, but it doesn't. People don't use social media the right way. I think that also. I think that's got a lot to answer for as well, because people create all these fake accounts and all these to start disruption or start like causing a wee bit of uproar or whatever it may be. So social media could actually help as well. I know it's massive in this day and age. Everyone's got technology, things develop, and that's the world, but it could actually help in a way as well, but it's not used correctly by likes of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They should be able to put filters on people and whatever it may be, what they're posting, to actually maybe help people mentally as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's, and on the theme of social media and mental health, if obviously if one of your team members comes back, as in like the players, I should say, come back and they're like, look, this person's posting this negativity, or I've posted, so I follow footballers, but I don't really want to talk about, like, I follow, like, I'm a fan of the game, not the team. So I'll go to any game and just watch it because I like the sport, like the camaraderie. That's my type of thing. So I follow pretty much somebody from every team in Scotland. It's crazy. But anyway, when a player comes back and it's like, so and so is posting, say they've posted a picture of them on the pitch scoring a goal or cheering, or a hug or something like that. But then someone's posted negativity and they come to you being like, coach, look at what's happening here and how do I deal with this? If somebody does that, how do you then tell them pretty much what you just told me, but how do you then convince them, look, their opinion doesn't matter? How do you do that?
It's very hard. It's very, very hard, because I can say it doesn't matter, but ultimately they're coming to you because it does matter. So it's a very, very difficult situation, and if people are struggling with that, probably the best trying advice is actually just come off. If just come off social media, and that's easier said than done as well. But ultimately, if you're posting things and then people are then commenting on it, and you can't handle the comments, for me, it's not that you can't handle them. Maybe the comments are wrong as well. So it's not to say that the comments are right, but if you don't want to hear it because there's nasty people in the world, that's the way the world is. You're not going to, in an ideal world, we all have nice people and no one's racist, and no one, we can try and stamp it out, but until Twitter, Facebook, Instagram get rid of all these fake accounts and whatever, it's always going to be there, because people aren't genuine on social media. These are all people that are putting on a show for other people, trying to be the big person and try to show off. So until there's actually these things put on social media where it's actually, genuinely that is the person that's posting it, they've got a profile picture that's not hiding behind a black screen, or it's not hidden behind a computer person's face or whatever it may be. You can only have one profile. Until that happens, you're not going to stop what goes on in social media. So it's always going to be there. So sometimes it's maybe best just taking a break from it and just stepping away, so you don't need to read about it and whatever. And then hopefully at some point these big companies decide actually social media needs to be looked at properly, and then the changes need to be made. Yeah.
Again, I totally agree with what you're saying. Everything there. I do think, you come across it, for example, if I post something and, even if it's a clip like this, that people obviously speak in that, and then you see people and they post and they've got follow 100 people, they've got 0 followers, no pictures, and it's just like a random picture of a cat or a dog and that, and it's like, why is somebody behind this account going out of their way to be someone else, to give someone else hate? It blows my mind. But
it's one of them that you kind of, you can't change it until Facebook, Twitter, etc., until they do it, because people could have 10 accounts. So they shut one down and they just open another one. They shut one down, they just open another one. So you're always going to have people who do that, and people jump on the bandwagon to try and people say things to try and get likes. People say things to try and get followers. People are controversial because actually they might be quite a boring person, and that's fine if you're just being yourself and you're quite within yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But some people feel that they need to be liked, or they need to have followers, or they need to have, just be yourself. You don't need to impress anyone. So there's people out there that feel that they need to go and do stuff, so they create a second account or they create a third account so that account can get loads of likes and loads of followers or whatever, and they feel that maybe that's the best way of connecting with people, and that's wrong as well. So it's one of them that you need to put things in place to stop it happening. Otherwise, you're always going to find that social media is actually a nasty place at times.
So to shift subjects a little bit, because like another thing I'm curious about, say someone's coming up the ranks, and we're talking about football now. Say somebody comes up the ranks in football, and they don't know, maybe they're watching this and they don't necessarily know how to either one, get scouted by a team, or two, like approach someone like yourself. What do you to get taken on as a player? What would you say to someone that's looking for something like that?
Just ask the question. It's that simple for me. I've always been brought up with the motto in life: if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think with having an older brother and older sister, I've had to kind of make sure that I do, because otherwise they kind of took over in the house. So for me personally, it's like, if you don't ask someone for a trial, if you don't ask someone if you can come in and train, you're never going to know if they would say yes or no. And a lot of coaches like myself, if players ask to come in and train, they're not going to say no. If players ask for a trial, you're not going to say no, because that player could add something to your team. You don't know. Like, if you've never seen that player play before, if you've never seen that player, if you don't know that player as a person, you don't know if they'll fit into your team, if they'll be good enough. So if they don't ask, normally with these sort of players, it's players that you've never seen before or never seen play. So these are ones that if they do come in, you're not going to say no to them, because you don't know what they could offer.
And see, like, somebody gets that offer, and then they come to the team and then they're playing along, and then like they're having to get shifted teams, but or maybe they get scouted, they get to go to an offer, but they're unsure if they should go. I know this is it's kind of a weird question to ask, but how do you then convince that player that it's maybe not because they're bad, I'm not saying that, but maybe convince the player that it's a good move that they go to that other team? What would you, because maybe you'd actually suit better, or this is closer to where you want to be, or how do you then speak to that player and be like, this is a good opportunity for you, if they want to just stay with you?
Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest bit. That's probably the hardest thing to do is move players on. But you've got to be honest with players. So if they're not getting game time and whatever, you can speak to them, and sometimes it is the right move to go and get game time or go and play, or sometimes they're just not maybe at the level you're wanting them to be at. So you have to be honest with them, and sometimes that can be brutal. But you try and put it in as nice a way as possible, because ultimately, if they stay and you don't want them to stay, it's not going to be good for anyone, really. If you're if you're wanting rid of a player and they're desperate to stay, and you're not telling them you want rid of them, really, it's always going to end in a bad way, because the player doesn't then know you actually want rid of them as such. So you've got to be honest with them. You've got to be polite to them, especially depending on the length of time that they've been at the club and whatever, and assuming that they've not caused any trouble or any friction. So if they've been a good servant to you, for example, there's ways and means of doing it, and that's probably the hardest bit is making sure you do that properly, and you don't sort of do it in the wrong way as such.
So say I know this is probably a weird question to ask, because again, like you obviously have a team. You've been there for 4 years. You've been at Dundee. Am I correct in saying that? 4?
Just about 4 years.
Just about 4 years. Say you got offered another opportunity, but you weren't. I know it's kind of like, because obviously, like as we're saying, I always like to relate things back to myself, so it's easier for people to know that. Like I have training partners, so we're like a family. We train together, eat together, have banter together. We have a group chat. Like, so when one of us is like, we're going to go away, it's really weird because you're like, where's the missing person? So say you
Yeah.
got offered an opportunity where they were like, I want to go to, St. Mirren. There we go. You were going to go to St. Mirren ladies or something. How would you then? I know it's like, how would you then explain to the ladies that you have, or there or them that you have, that like, look, I'm going to go away because things wouldn't be the same if you're not there. Not just because it's you, but just because of you're like, obviously it's like a family environment. How would you deal with that one?
Yeah, that's probably really difficult, and kind of had to do it a wee bit when I was at the university, just because of certain things that happened and whatever. So it was really difficult when you build up that sort of relationship with the players as such. Ultimately, you're not there to be the players' friends, you're there to get the best out of them, but you do build up a sort of bond with them where there is that coach to player sort of bond where you obviously need to get on well with each other, but you need to be honest with them. And I think it probably respect's the right word to use, where they respect you and you respect them. So when you do leave, if you decide that it's better elsewhere, that's probably the hardest bit, because you probably lose a bit of that respect from the sort of players if you decide to leave, unless it's mega money and they completely understand. If it's you're leaving to go to another club that basically in the same situation, I think you probably lose a bit of respect from the players that way. I think if you're making a massive step up and you're getting offered life-changing money, I don't think you would lose as much respect from the players. I think they would probably understand that. So it really depends on the situation, and depends on where you're leaving to go as well. Where it probably, if you're leaving to go and make a step up and get paid a lot more money, that's going to make you settled and make your family settled, I think it's a pretty easy one to do, and it's a no-brainer, and they can sort of understand that. Whereas if you're just leaving to go to another team and do exactly the same job for exactly the same money or exactly the same whatever, that's when it becomes probably difficult to sort of tell them and actually let them know and whatever. But yeah, I've never really been in that position, hopefully not. So but yeah, that's probably the hardest thing to do, would be if you were going to another club of a similar stature.
So yeah, I'm sure if any of your team will listen to this, I'm sure they'll or watch this, I'm sure they'll be curious about this question. Say like you're having, obviously we won't talk about what struggles because that's personal, I realise that, but say you're having struggles yourself, and outside of like football or outside of like your coaching type stuff, what like, and how do you then know not to bring it onto the coaching thing? Because obviously people's tension becomes really low when they've got a lot of trouble and they don't want to say then. But how do you then not express that to anyone else? That's meant to be hard.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult in terms of in that sense. Not so much in terms of, I'm fortunate enough that I've not had too many challenges from that point of view. So I completely understand there's people out there that get challenges every day. I'm in a fortunate position where I've not had as many challenges as other people to overcome. But there is certainly days where you've kind of had bad days and you just don't want to be there at times. And it's, again, it goes back to what I said earlier about football's your release, and just getting over that and really looking forward to something. Like if I could have a bad day at work, I can't wait and it being over. As soon as it's over, I'm like, right, focus on the football and go in. And it's really important that as a coach, you've got to remember that you're the focal point. You're the one that the players are relying on to put on a good session. You're the one that the players look for whether it be advice, whether it be creating energy, whether it be for telling them off and raising standards. You're the one that needs to do all that. So it is a lot of pressure from that point of view, but ultimately that's why you do it, because you enjoy it and you want to do that and you want to help them get better and you want to help them improve. So it does have its challenges, but at times it's one of them that you need to be there for the players as well, that you've got 20, 23, whatever it may be, players there relying on you to do the best possible thing for them as well. So you're not just putting pressure on yourself if you're having a bad day. And that's the way I sort of channel it as such. As if I'm having a bad day or if I'm having a rubbish day, I'm not just going to let myself down. I'm going to let another 20 odd people down. So I need to basically focus and get myself back in a better place, so that when we go in that training field, everything's the way it should be.
Yeah. So say you're structuring, or I guess you won't. Well, you might say you're structuring a team and things like that, and obviously you've got your team set up of you said 11 players, wasn't it? Is that what you?
Yeah.
Yeah, 11 players. You so then, but you've got. How do you then tell people that are like really wanting a game or they can't get a game? How do you then tell them that you're not picking them? Because I can imagine it's not just as easy as being like, yeah, I'm not choosing you today. I'm not choosing you today.
Yeah, that's in terms of managing players, that's the hardest bit. You've got to be honest with them as well, and you've got to tell them why other players are maybe playing in front of them. But ultimately, to win something or to be a successful team, it can't just be about 11 players. So there is weeks where players won't play. There's weeks that players should play and they won't play. But ultimately, it's building a squad that's good enough to go and win trophies and win leagues. And if you've got that dynamic in your squad where you understand that and realise that, you'll be successful. And if you don't have a squad that's got strength and depth in terms of after you're starting 11, you maybe be good for certain games, but you're not going to sustain that over the course of a season because you're going to miss players through injuries, suspensions, holidays, whatever it may be. You're going to be missing players at some point throughout the course of the season. So it's really important that you do have that squad mentality and players understand that, look, you're not playing for this reason. You might not agree with it, but that's the reason behind it. But it might be next week, it might be 3 weeks in line that you come back in and you play.
Yeah. That's the thing, because a lot of people might think it's a little bit of a downer on them a little bit, but it's not, because at the end of the day, all they're focusing on is like, it's teamwork, as you said before, and earlier on, that it literally is all about teamwork. Football is one of the very few games, obviously rugby, things like that, but it's based on pretty much teamwork. You all have to have that connection together and so on and so on. But say you're looking for a player, like I guess you might be now, you don't have to necessarily say, but say you're looking for a player in that, what type of thing would you look for in someone right now? Well, we'll say like this year necessarily, that you're like, you'd be a really good fit for my team. What would you say onto that one?
First and foremost, it probably depends on positionally. So if you've got two strong goalkeepers, for example, going inside a third goalkeeper would be just ludicrous, because you can only play one at a time for a goalie. So first and foremost, they've got to suit where you're sort of needing players positionally, from that aspect. Secondly, you've got to do your sort of homework on them, and are they good enough? Where do they play? What position are they playing in? Are they up to the standard? And then lastly, it's what type of person are they? Are they going to come in and add to the group? Are they going to come in and not speak to anyone? Are they going to have a personality? Are they going to be outspoken? Are they going to be shy? All these sort of things you need to understand, because players can come in a group and be really shy, but actually they can still add to the group, and players can be really outspoken and really vocal, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad for the group. Your group might need 2 or 3 players like that, and that's going to speak out on behalf of them, or going to actually go and tell you how it is at times as well. So some people think, oh, they're not a nice person, or they're not a bad character because they're vocal. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And then people might think, oh, well, she's really quiet. That doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't add anything to the group either. So it's about finding out where your group's at and trying to understand where they can fit in as well.
Yeah. There's like having a space for everybody, and I guess like you're just saying, as long as you slot into that space, fine, it's all right. But you are still, have to actually get on with your teammates and things like that. But say for for yourself now, obviously you put a lot of time into effort into your obviously coaching, full-time job, family, and various other things. and you know, it makes me think like, what's your overall dreams yourself? Like, what I know I say dreams, but goals would be a better one yourself. Where would you see? I'm not going to say see yourself in 5 years because that's so cliche, but where would you see
Yeah.
yourself in like the future? Would be a better way to put it.
Probably just working full time, probably in football, because obviously I love the game, played it, coached it. But yeah, just not having to juggle the workload and family and you're then coaching on top of that. Like, you just need to focus on your family and your football. So having that full-time job is obviously the end goal. Where that may be, I'm sure my partner wouldn't mind me saying, but she's quite open to going overseas and living overseas somewhere as well. So something we've discussed before, we've looked at before. So yeah, something a bit different, I think. While I'm sort of in Scotland, I'm quite happy where I'm at. So if I was to move, it would probably be something that's going to be changing not just my own life, but probably my family's life and stuff as well. So it's got to be right and got to be the right opportunity as well. So when I'm in somewhere, I'm quite loyal and I'm very passionate to what I do. So when I was at St Andrews, I was there for over 8 years. So yeah, so once I get in somewhere, whether it be work, whether it be job wise, quite passionate about what I do and where I want to be. So it's got to be the right move. Otherwise, I'm not the sort of person that's going to go 6 months to 6 months to 6 months in different jobs and moving about. So yeah, it's just about finding that right role and right job. And at the moment, I'm not actively looking because I'm quite happy where I'm at. But if opportunities come up, you've obviously got to look at them, especially if it's something that's right for the family. And that's probably the most important thing for me is, like, my son, he's quite settled at school, and my partner, she's quite settled in her life as well. And although they both want to move abroad at some point, it's got to be right, because it can't just be moving them and them not enjoying themselves as well. So can't just be selfish that way either. But yeah, definitely something in the future to get abroad at some point.
Yeah. If you were to say, well, you don't have to say, but if there was a certain place abroad you would go, where would it be?
It always used to be America, and it probably still, America's probably still out there, but probably in the last 2 years I've really fancied the look of Scandinavia, which is a bit different, but
Wow.
I really like how they work things out there, and the way football works and the way they kind of invest and develop and stuff out there. So I think Scandinavia is probably the one area of the world that they really try and develop as much as they can. I think they've got a similar sort of ideas of where they want to get to, but I think they actually go and put them in. But I've always said America. My partner would definitely say America. She's been there a couple of times as well. So, but for me, I quite, the last couple of years, the more I've kind of seen different things and read different things, it would probably Scandinavia would be one that would sort of interest me.
Yeah. So like, I always like to end on like a really positive note. So like, and whether that be like with a couple questions, like I've got a question, and then you know, I'll get another thing off yourself, but you know, because I literally forgot to ask you this one. But say when we all have like crazy obstacles, right? And it sometimes, as you said before, some people have like bigger, quote unquote, bigger, you know, problems and little problems. You know, like, oh, I can't fix my car, and then, you know, like, or I can't actually afford my rent. All this, so there's like huge problems, and it's all relative. But
Yep.
say for yourself and things like that. Say when you have like obstacles, and an obstacle comes your way, how do you overcome it? And then when you have overcome it, how do you then use that for future references to that obstacle, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so people that know me and my partner, it kind of drives her insane at times as well, because I don't stress about anything. Like, I'm passionate about things, I get worked up, and I get sometimes angry about if things aren't the way we want them to be, but I don't stress and I don't worry about anything. So yeah, first and foremost, it's assess what's going on. Like, no point in stressing and worrying, because all it does is make things worse. So you can't change whatever you're stressed and worried about. You can't change it, or you're going to make things worse. If you're worried about an exam tomorrow, what's the point in worrying about it? You're not going to change what's going to happen. You're going to go into that exam and you're going to do what you're going to do. So stress and worrying about it is probably going to make it worse. If it's you've got a flat tire in the car, for example, like I'm just picking out two wee random situations, but if you've got a flat tire, stress, worrying when you've got a flat tire, it's pointless because you've got it. You can't undo it. So again, it's something that, whether it's happened in the past or whether it's something that's going to happen in the future, for me, stress and worrying, there's no point. There's genuinely no point to it, because it's something, and I know it's easier said than done. And then obviously once you go over the problem, whatever it may be, it's learning from it. So it's understanding why that thing happened. Was it a bit of unluck? Was it just a bit of luck? Was it something that you could have prevented? Why could you have prevented that? Okay, that's fine. So put things in place to stop it happening again in the future. If it's a case of literally like any sort of type of luck, you can't change it sometimes. Sometimes things happen and sometimes you can't affect anything. So yeah, it's just one of these things that you might be traveling, for example, traveling to a game and there's a crash in the road and you can't get past it. You can't change that. You can't. That's not your fault. That's not anything. You couldn't have planned for that. You couldn't have done anything. You didn't know that something was going to happen in front of you. So there's times where things happen and it's just things that happen in the world and it's luck. So again, it depends on the situation. It depends on the scenario, but certainly not stressing or worrying is certainly something I would say first and foremost is don't stress or don't worry, because you can't change it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always say to people as well when it comes to like various different things. And although you have struggles and stuff like that, or like as in you're getting, even when like as we talked about before, you're getting negativity in that, you're letting that person, like as the cliche saying goes, you let the person live rent free in your head. It's the same with situations. You're letting it get to you and stuff, but most of the time people are like compulsive overthinkers. So like the littlest thing, and next thing you know, it's this big huge ordeal and you're stressing, and it's like, what are you on about? When you explain it to someone, like, this makes no sense why you should be, because it's not going to affect you today, tomorrow, ever. It's going to affect you in maybe like 10, 20 years. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But on that note, the another question is that, and I'm sure you have, because everybody I've spoken to has, that see when like it comes to the word fear, I know people say it means like face everything and rise, and there's lots of like different sayings and stuff that goes towards it. But say when you've ever had to like face your fears and that, what did, like, how did you then, you know, overcome them? Because I can realize when someone's fear, I don't mean phobias, by the way, but I mean, like, if you actually go to face your fears, it's a lot, it's overwhelming, it's draining. That, so for yourself in that, how did you do it, if you have had to do it?
I think it's something that's there, and it's there for a reason. And I always think, like, if you're wanting, and I say this, and we've got 2 or 3 young academy kids at the moment trying to break into the first team from the sort of the youth teams, and I always say, it's like, is it something that you really want enough that you need to go and do something that's right out with your comfort zone? So if it is something that's worth it, then you need to face it. You need to go and get through it, and whatever it may be, because it's there for a reason. So there's a reason everything's there. And if it's you need to get past another 10 players to get into the team, then the 10 players are there for a reason. They're not there because they're there because we need to have a strong squad, or we need to have a strong pool of players. So if you've came in and you're at the sort of, that you've came in at the bottom of the chain, if you like, or whatever, you've got 10 players to overcome to get in the squad or in the team. They're there for a reason. Now, do you want to push yourself and really get through that fear of actually maybe going out your comfort zone and maybe having to go and do a run in your own time, or having to go and do some extra training to get past them? And that's something maybe you don't want to do. That's something that's a fear of, oh no, I don't want to go a 5K because I'm scared my time's going to be terrible, or I'm scared that it's not going to be good enough. Well, if you don't start somewhere, if you don't do it, again, I'm just using a different example, but
Yeah.
it's one that overcoming fear is really something that probably you need to do. And as you say, we're not talking about phobias because I wouldn't touch a spider, but that's a different story. But yeah, so even things like that where you're worried, and again, a lot of fears come because it's what people think of them. And I think it's getting worse and worse in the world. Than from when I was growing up, there was people didn't judge you really, or people bullying wasn't as big a thing, or things like that. Like there wasn't that as much social media as we've spoken about already, or wasn't as that much pressure on people now to look a certain way or to act in a certain way. So fears are becoming bigger and bigger because of what people may think of them. For example, if you look at women's football, for example, children growing up 20 years ago, and you hear it, obviously I didn't experience it, but you hear it from older players playing the game. Female point of view is a lot of these female footballers had to train with men or train with boys back when it was boys. So when they're growing up, if they're playing under 10s, under 11s, they're having to play with boys because there was no girl. It was frowned upon, or it was looked at funnily, or it just wasn't the norm for girls to be training in a girls' team 20 years ago, whereas now it's the norm. So again, these people 20 years ago are maybe facing their fears of they're doing it because they want to play football, but it maybe didn't look as good as it or whatever. But yeah, nowadays there's so many more fears and barriers to overcome, but also think there's a lot more barriers getting broken down, as I said, in terms of trying to do away with the sort of gender thing or the racism thing, and it's not going to happen overnight, and it's a long process and a long road. But the more barriers we can break down in society and break down as people and all kind of work together for the end goal, I think people then start having less and less fears, because I think the fears have been created by social media, and a lot more fears are getting created by social media. So yeah, if we can start breaking the barriers down of what people need to look like, or judging people and what they need to do or how they need to act, then I think we can hopefully sort of get the world and get people in a better place.
Yeah, and I think that on that note, that's probably like one of the best things we've ended on, if I'm being perfectly honest. And the fact that, like, you know, because you hear it all the time, like, I'm afraid of this or I'm afraid of that, and it's like, why? And it's like, because I don't know what people are thinking. You can't go through life wondering what, like you're saying, wondering what people. You can't make everybody happy. Like, this is what, like, I think some people, and I'm sure you're telling your son as well, but like I tell you know, even like the kids around here and stuff like that, and then they talk about, you know, what do you do? Because if everybody speaks to everyone around here, so like, what do you do? And bloody blah, and they're like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I'm afraid. And I'm like, why would you be afraid at such a young age? It makes no sense. To me, you need to, like, as I tell them, to me, you need to go and you need to really like be driven at your age, because when you hit my age and if you don't have that drive, like if you've never developed it, life is going to be so much harder for you when you've hit my age to then try and develop the drive, develop the confidence, develop things that you do really need to have it. Well, at least have the foundation there when you're younger to then obviously progress it and move forward and things like that. It's a hard lesson to learn, but when you've learned it, it definitely helps. Anyway, I can definitely foresee that one. But
no, definitely.
Yeah, it's but yeah, I do want to, like, again, it's finally great to have you on. It was all my fault, but like just family and various different avenues and that. But it was great to have you on. And what I do want to say is, do you have any, if you want to, obviously, do you have any social medias that you can, like, if people want to reach out to you or that at all, they can give you a shout on?
Yeah, you can get me on Twitter. It's just at Graeme Hart 89. So you need me on Twitter or anything, or any questions to ask or whatever, they can sort of contact me through that.
Yeah, and yeah, as I say to everybody, as always, like, as I just said, you need to, like, it is like 2022 is a weird year because it seems to be everybody's more motivated ever since the, you know, lockdown happens and stuff. But you do really need to kill it this year. And again, thank you very much for your time, Graeme. Thank you very much for everybody watching, listening, like, comment, subscribe. You know, just be a better you this year. Thank you very much. See you later on.